Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso right here on SABC3. Thank you so much for choosing to start your morning with us right now. As we have entered the 14 days into the lockdown, giving up alcohol for dry July or sober October is a trendy way to cut out the booze and improve your health. But since alcohol sales were banned during lockdown, many people have been forced into an alcohol-free April. What does this mean for their health? Now we are joined by medical Doctor Michael Mol. He joins us via video call to give us his expert opinion. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning, Kukle. How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm going through a dry lockdown, which is so good.
It's fantastic. And that's why we're having this conversation. For someone who regularly drinks alcohol, I mean, being forced into, stopping to drink alcohol must come as a bit of a shock, both psychologically and to their system. What does alcohol withdrawal look like? And what are the physiologically, how does it look like as well? Like, what is happening to your body when you withdraw from alcohol?
Sure. So quickly, I think you need to, you get regular drinkers and then you get regular drinkers. And I think it's important to differentiate between those who drink moderately and heavy drinkers, because the impact of alcohol or the lack thereof could have a very different effect. So important to tell the difference between moderate and heavy drinkers.
What are the differences?
So a moderate drinker would be a woman who has two standard drinks a day, and a man who has 3 standard drinks a day. So a standard drink for an individual would be a glass of wine, about 150 mils of that, or a beer, 340 mils of beer. So 2 of those for a woman, 3 of those for a man. A moderate drinker can go a day or 2 without their drinks. So during the lockdown, if they're going to skip out on their nightcap of Sauvignon Blanc or their whiskey, it's not really going to have a major impact on their system. But for a heavy drinker, it is going to have an impact, and you're going to certainly get withdrawals.
And then what are some of these withdrawals that people may be experiencing during this time?
Well, alcohol has got a slowing effect on your brain. We call it a sedating effect. And what essentially happens is for heavy drinkers who are continuously exposed to this alcohol, their brains have got this chronic, depressed, sedated effect. And what their brain does is adjusts and compensates by producing naturally stimulating chemicals, things like serotonin and norepinephrine. And that sort of compensates. If you take that alcohol away, it's a bit like driving a car without the brakes on, because all of a sudden you've got all these stimulating chemicals in your brain with no alcohol to suppress them, and your withdrawal symptoms are like someone that's brain is just completely wired and over the top and overstimulated. And those are the kinds of effects you're going to get when you see withdrawal.
And then how can one who's experiencing these withdrawals cope in this time?
Well, there are a couple of things you could do. I mean, there's medication you can't take. I wouldn't touch medication unless you've spoken to your doctor, of course. So that's very important. And there are people that are willing to help and wanting to help. But there are other things you can do. I think exercise, very important. Yes, even in the lockdown, find time to exercise, because exercise produces endorphins, those happy hormones, which really ups your brain chemistry. And if you can exercise outdoors, even better, because there's some studies that have shown that at least 20 minutes outdoors every day helps people deal with cravings and reduces the cravings for alcohol and smoking at that as well. So there's exercise, there is breathing. It sounds silly, breathing, we all breathe. I'm talking about belly breathing. If you can get into belly breathing, it engages your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's involved with critical thinking and reasoning. And if that brain is activated, that part of your brain, you can get through these cravings. So breathing, exercise, and diet, very important. So alcohol gets metabolized as sugar. So if you're cutting your alcohol, you're not getting your sugar hit. But instead of replacing that with sweet treats, I'd suggest you replace it with leafy greens and some sort of healthy fats. And that way, you can compensate for alcohol withdrawal. But of course, there are people you can call. There's SADAG, there's Hello Doctor. You really should speak to someone to help.
That's a very interesting way of dealing with, the withdrawal symptoms. At least here on the show, we have Withdrawal, who can perhaps show us some of these exercises that we can do to kind of help with coping, with such withdrawals. Thank you so much, Doctor. Now, I know that with the withdrawals comes health benefits. What are some of these health benefits that, can help people?
Well, alcohol is an interesting thing. Alcohol is a dose-related drink, if you like, or chemical. There are some benefits associated with moderate alcohol consumption. But as I said, it's dose responsive. The more alcohol you drink, the higher your risks. So for me, this opportunity of lockdown, which is kind of saying limit your alcohol intake, is great. Because if you can reduce your alcohol intake, there are a couple of things that happen. There was a landmark study some years ago that showed people who drink moderately, don't smoke, exercise regularly, eat whole foods, live on average 14 years longer than people who do those things. So that's the first thing. But secondly,
number.
14 years, that's the difference between seeing your grandkids or not. And the other thing about alcohol is if you reduce your alcohol intake, you're reducing your risk for things like certain cancers, diabetes, liver disease, and heart disease. So from my perspective, lockdown can be really great to help us reduce our alcohol intake. And it doesn't only mean a longer life, it means a healthier life. So I'm all for lockdown and limited alcohol.
It's the best time to also just establish healthy habits. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us right here on your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso. Please have yourself a wonderful morning.
And you, Cookle, anytime. Great chatting.
Please let us know what you guys think on our social media platforms using the hashtag Expresso Show. With Easter around the corner, we are giving you Easter treats and inspirations. I see Uncle Tabsy is ready over there. You're making custard Easter eggs?